publishing company that he just launched with three very diverse style comics. Is called Earthtone Kingdom. His name is AJ Ampadu. Need to find the right one. This stuff just looks great, man. I got to read a little bit of the horror comic, which is called Dragon Face, and it's very fucking good. Very fucking good. Just from what I've read. And then he's got two other comics that he crowdfunded at the same time, completely different genres. And he's got different artists for each one, so the styles are very diverse as well. Yeah, that's probably my favorite cover from Dragon Face that I've seen so far. And it's a full graphic novel, like 130 pages or something.
Damn.
And yeah, the link to his website, if you want to check any of that out, is in the description. It's just earthtoneking.com. And yeah, I recommend that because everything I can tell, like I named the stream, this dude did crowdfunded comics the right way. There's a lot of people that do it in less than classy ways. I'll say that. And and then whenever they do get their books funded, maybe sometimes it takes a couple of years to actually get it out. Nope, not this guy. He's an overachiever. Hey AJ, what's up, man?
Hello. Am I in the house?
Yep, you are here. How's it going?
Houston, we have landed. Okay, let me just adjust my volume real quick. Greetings. How's everyone doing tonight? Happy Friday indeed. I'm happy to be here with you guys tonight. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
Happy to have you. I saw you were promoting your books, and typically if somebody follows me or whatever, and I see that they make comics, I'll check them out. See what they're working on and stuff. And I saw that you were just now like wrapping up funding, I think, but you were launching, right now, basically. And
yeah, indeed, it's been a really, really long journey, filled with a lot of ups and downs. The path of a independent comic book crowdfunder is definitely can be a tumultuous one, but it's also very rewarding. So yeah, we can definitely talk about that. I would love to open up about everything I have to share with you guys. I just wanted to first thank you for having me on here, and just wanted to shout out everyone in the chat. How's it going, guys?
Are you familiar with all these guys we tend to talk about, AJ?
I'm familiar with a lot of them. It seems like once you fall down the rabbit hole of the YouTube algorithm, no matter what you do, you're just going to get flooded. And it's interesting how it seems like a lot of these channels are kind of clones of each other, so they kind of parrot each other's talking points. So a TV show like a She-Hulk or something like that, it's content gold for them. And then so if I block like 5 of them, there's apparently 10 more that are gonna pop up on my stream. So it is interesting. I didn't even realize how I was being inundated with the content until my wife told me. She was like, hey, every time we talk about something from geek culture, you talk about it from the perspective of this anti-fan community. And I was like, wow, you're right. I'm ingesting so much of the content that now I'm regurgitating it. And that's harmful. That hurts somebody like me who, before I'm a creator, I'm a fan. Like I've been a fan of this type of stuff since I was a kid. And it's never been like this. Like this was supposed, this culture is supposed to be an escape. It's always been an escape for me from the problems of the world or whatnot. Comic books have always helped me for mental health and things of that nature. So to see it now being kind of like infected by a lot of people who just want to monopolize, I guess, dissent in a way, in order, for their own gain. It does affect me deeply. And it's challenging because you kind of have to not pay attention to it. If you want to be a creator, you have to just be true to yourself and continue, stay the course, and all the rest of it is noise. But I think that the way technology operates, it makes it more challenging, especially if you have to use these tools, whether it be YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, whatnot, in order to promote yourself. So I know I kind of just went off on a really long tangent.
It's cool. It's cool. I always want to hear, other people's experience on this stuff because, I mean, there's always a little bit of difference, but then the overarching thing is that everybody recognizes that, and I'm sorry, I have a cough drop. My throat was getting weird, but everybody, recognizes that if you're engaging in fan spaces at all, you're going to be dealing with this stuff. And like you said, it's unfortunate. And it's why, I started the channel and shit. And like, I didn't want, what I didn't realize starting my channel was how much people, like wanted something like this. But even still, like you said, they dominate, especially YouTube. The way YouTube works, where it's just like it's 97% male, and then they got a head start early on with the anti-SJW bullshit that kind of grew into Trumpism and stuff, and then that just kind of blossomed out from there, and where everything became infected with this stuff. And like you, I've been a comics fan as long as I can remember. And yeah, and like you said, it's not only an escape, but it's good for mental health, and it's like helped me personally as far as like growth and being from the deep South and stuff. And I was surrounded by a lot of really small-minded ideas, and I gained a lot from like X-Men comics and stuff like that, understanding perspectives outside of what was immediately around me. And and I think that's probably part of the intention of that content, is that they know that to some degree, you know what I mean? And they want to act like X-Men, oh, now X-Men's woke. And it's like, you know what I mean?
X-Men invented woke.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Stan Lee didn't do it on purpose. That's kind of documented that he didn't think about it that way, but it was pretty quickly that they started taking a direction.
Yeah. I'm under the guise that it was in the air at the time. It was in his subconscious. It came out, that happens a lot, where someone points out, hey, this thing is actually that, to the actual artist, and the artist's like, hey, that's a good point. That's happened several times, where they don't fully comprehend the themes that was running through them as they were making their art,
Yeah. And so it's really just my view is that this stuff is just the kind of cultural extension, fandom extension of all this other reactionary, hateful shit that's been going on. You know what I mean? And that, it's like, I just feel like because I have this specific experience with this stuff that people who should do something about it. If I had the talent to make a comic book, I'd probably be focusing on that, but I don't. So like, I feel like this is what I can do to contribute, so that maybe, at least if they're mad at me or whatever, they're not going after somebody that's actually making good comics or movies or whatever.
Well, I mean, I made the joke that you're doing the Lord's work, but it's, they found a void, right? Essentially, where there's a lot of people who were dissatisfied, I guess, with the current state of comics, and they were able to give them a narrative and a reason for it. And then they made it political, and they're able to monetize that. So if you're kind of, seeing that there's like a counter void, even if that's even a concept, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. I think that's genius. Like, I think that if they're creating counter content based on what Marvel and DC are doing, and you're creating the counter content to their counter content, it's an interesting chess move in regards to, this space.
I mean, there's a lot in their favor with this stuff. Like like I said, they just have dominance and have for several years, especially on YouTube. And then like, sorry. And another thing is the way the algorithm works and the way YouTube works. It's like people are more inclined to click on stuff that says really dramatic, hyperbolic shit in the title and the thumbnail. And then YouTube algorithm also likes sameness. So that's why all their thumbnails are kind of similar. They have the same, visual signaling. And, like when they cover some woman in a show that they don't like, they're going to have her looking all mad and, angry on the thumbnail. So like that kind of signifies, how women are angry bitches, right? You know what I mean? That's like, It's ridiculous.
What's more ridiculous to me is how the financial incentives, the monetization of it. And I know someone who works at YouTube, and let's just say that this type of content it's very, it seems like it can generate a lot of attention very quickly. I think they say that negative content travels like 6 times further on the internet or whatever than something positive. So if you're just thinking of it from a financial perspective, it just kind of makes sense. And if you don't care about how it affects the world around you, then I mean, it makes sense, financially. And I think that obviously there's some creators who have proven this by earning a lot of money peddling their wares.
And that's what really, it's one thing to be like making videos about, ranting about wokeness or whatever. Like, all right, that's stupid bullshit, and I don't like that you're making money off of that kind of that, because that just feeds into the culture of hate and stuff. But then you got other guys who, they've spent years on their platform doing that, and then suddenly they're like, but I got a comic now. You know what I mean? And then they want to act like they're selling a comic when they're selling they're just monetizing this audience they've built on this bigotry and stuff.
I mean, that's one issue I have as well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with creating a comic and selling it to an audience. Like, I actually think that's great. And I've given this a lot of thought, and sometimes I sit back and I wonder, is this net positive for the comic book industry? If someone brings in a huge flood of new fans, even if they're bigoted or whatever, I think there's a percentage of them who are just, in fact, I'm sure of it, there's a percentage of them who just kind of get caught up in all of the noise, and they just like see the comic and they're like, okay, well, maybe I should give this a try. And maybe they're dissatisfied with Marvel and DC, but not for the same reasons, maybe not for negative reasons. Maybe they just don't like what they're putting out right now, which is perfectly fine. And maybe they see a comic, like, let's just say like a Rippaverse comic or whatnot, and the artwork's good. I don't think that person that person doesn't necessarily have sinister motives behind that purchase. And I think that sometimes I think, well, maybe it ultimately bringing new fans into the comic book realm can have some net positive effect.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a good point. And I'm sure there's some percentage that's the case with, right? And then, one of the things we did, like a whole 4.5 hour stream on the Rippaverse and ISOM thing a while back, and we didn't even get to a couple of things that we had planned, but yeah, we wanted to look at, like, basically, I did a lot of research and found that a lot of what you're saying is basically true. There were a lot of people who either had never bought a comic book before, or hadn't bought one in a couple of decades or something like that. Maybe there were 90s kids like us or whatever that got out of it, and and they were like, I haven't bought one in decades and stuff. And it's just, I wonder how many of them though are actually then going to go check out, even if not Marvel and DC, because fuck them, they're corporations. You don't want to give them money. I get it. But like, there's so many different indie comics that you can support, and I just wonder how many of them are actually going to do that. And to me, it seems like it's just like it's not that it's an insidious motive for a lot of people to buy that. It's just more like, this will show them, you know what I mean? Right. Like, we're supporting this, and it'll show that nobody likes this woke shit.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a numbers game. I mean, once we hit a number of people, you're gonna get that periphery who, ultimately are like, hey, you know what? Maybe there's more non-woke comics out there, and they end up buying, I don't know, some old Punisher or Wolverine comics or something like that. So yeah, I it's, I'm trying to take the good with the bad is the way I'm looking at it. And if nothing else, a guy like Eric July and a lot of other creators, they've at least proven a point, financially. And I think that's important. If there's anything that I can kind of agree with someone like Eric July, is that the business of comics needs some you know, evaluating in the terms of how, you know, independent creator, and it's already clearly changing without as we you know, move forward. So I think there is some truth to the financials of things, but what I can't deal with, and I'm not a political guy and I don't try to play those games, but ultimately the what I call the undercurrent of intolerance, whether that means racism, bias, prejudice, whatever you want to call it semantically, just this idea that there's some type of hatred, you know, that's undercurrent to whatever your opinion is. That's where I draw the line, because that's not what this industry is supposed to be about.
If there was any truth to the get woke, go broke thing, then they would have already stopped making quote unquote woke content already. You know what I mean? They've been saying that for like 4 years now. And then you get shit like, you know, these guys spent a year talking about Captain Marvel was going to fail because it's woke and feminist or whatever. Then it makes $1 billion. You know what I mean? And there's no real consistency with their standards for it either. You know, they may have a specific idea of what not woke is, but you know, I've seen them call some pretty wild stuff woke. You know, and then stuff I wouldn't even consider really progressive in any way, I've seen them call woke. And it's, you know, it's the thing that I try to remember with these guys, and I try to remind my audience, is that it's cynical.
Not only that, they even call stuff that is woke non-woke. Joker.
True.
Hashtag Joker.
True.
Yeah, you know, they backtracked on what, House of Dragons, right? Because you know, even though that is a very, to me, that if there's ever a feminist TV show, it's like that whole season is about like childbirth and what it means to be like a mother, and
women's,
you know,
roles and stuff.
And you know, it's one of the most popular shows and seasons ever. And here's the thing, and I'm just gonna give you this analogy that I always apply. Kind of like when you get, I call it the shower head analogy. Like if you get in the shower and you turn it on and it's too hot, so you turn it to the left to make it, but now it's too cold, and you turn it back to the right, now it's still too warm. You're trying to get that perfect temperature. And I think that in society there's been these like seismic shifts in regards to our consciousness, right? Whether it be a Me Too or George Floyd, there's been all these things that people have kind of stood back and said, hey, we gotta look at things differently. And that's us kind of like theoretically, you know, switching that shower head. So sometimes once in a while, there might be an overcorrection. And I don't want to use the word wokeness, but there might be sometimes I do, even myself, I watch a TV show and a movie and I'm like, all right, well, it's clear that they were trying to make inclusion and diversity more important than the quality of the story. But for me, you know, for every time that happens, there's about 1 million examples on the other side of the fence where, you know, it's been a beautiful, amazing story, and there were quote unquote levels of wokeness in it. So it's just, once again, it just falls apart when you really criticize film and television for just the quality of it as opposed to the politics.
My thing is I tend to just I look for, you know, if I could get a consistent, like a list of this is what woke is, this is what it always means in every case, then we could have a conversation, because I'm sure I'd probably agree with you know, with some of them about like, oh yeah, that's a little heavy-handed kind of thing. You know what I mean? There's definitely moments I mentioned in my recent video about in Avengers Endgame. Love that movie, but like then at the end there where all the women Avengers show up.
Yeah,
you know,
that didn't even make logistical sense.
Right.
And then why would Gamora be running with them? She didn't even like them. That version of Gamora.
Boo, I love that shot. You guys are wrong. Boo.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, I don't think it ruined anything.
Right. It didn't take me out of the movie, but it was, you know, it was heavy handed, as you said. Like it reeked of effort is essentially what the problem. You know, you can create a moment like that. You just have to give it a narrative reason for being there, and then we would be completely fine. But there was no narrative reason for all of those characters to be in that, you know, part of the battle with all these moving parts going on. It just didn't really make sense.
Well, as Perp, you know, pointed out to me in that video, you know, that it was a stream we did a month or so ago, but the videos just went out. And it's a great point, is that you know, you can call that pandering, but then like there's a lot of stuff that movies do that's pandering technically. That's like, we know the audience wants this, or we know that this is gonna, you know, be a crowd pleaser for some people, and they do it, and it's like, but nobody really, you know, if it's pandering to you, you're cool with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's pandering to women, then some dudes are like, wait a second,
Like,
you know what I mean? And
yeah.
I think that we just, as creators, you know, myself as a creator, you know, you got to do something about it, and that's one of the reasons why I use it as fuel. You know, because I do listen to some people where I'm just like, well, maybe we do need, you know, a more variety of like different characters, and I don't try to let this influence my work too much, but I do sometimes hear people where I'm just like, okay, I try to be open to everyone's perspective. So trying to take the good with the bad.
And this is the kind of thing that, you know, the comment on screen right now from Janice is like, that's what we're saying is, and that's what one of the reasons, that's kind of what the ambassador thing is about to me, is like, okay, you don't like a thing, but can you accept that other people do, and that their perspective, their experience, how they feel about this, that's fucking valid. And I think that, you know, thinking that way kind of applies to life in general with other people, you know, on the planet, right? It's like, okay, you don't get this perspective because it's not your experience, but you know, if we can value it, and we can go, okay, that there's space in this world, there's space in this movie for this person's thing that they like, that caters to their experience, then, you know, we're all going to do a little bit better, I think. But yeah, but just to read it, Janice says, to be honest, quite a few females liked it. Most female heroes can only fight other female villains for the most part, and to see a bunch of females protecting a male was fun. Hell yeah.
The Great Spider-Man harem, that's what I called it.
Yeah, this Spider-Man harem. But yeah, anyway, it's you know, I started doing this stuff just because I didn't like what was some specific people and things that were being said about Comicsgate, like comics, the whole Comicsgate thing in general. And I didn't imagine that I would have expanded talking about this stuff. I didn't imagine that I would realize it plays such a huge role. But yeah, it dominates the conversation. You can't go on a public platform anywhere and talk about, you know, like, oh man, I like this or I don't like this, because for whatever, you know, valid reason, because these people are probably going to show up and have something to say about it. And you know, and one of the reasons that I don't like the comics aspect in general, because it's like them talking about Marvel and Star Wars movies, whatever. Marvel and Star Wars are going to do fine, whether or not these guys are making, you know, videos about them. But the comics thing is, you got a couple of groups of comic, you know, people that basically portray themselves as the independent comic book industry. You know, like I've been accused of not supporting the indie comics industry or indie creator-owned comics because I talk about so and so and so and so. And it's like, no, man, there's such a broad range and you know, of independent creators, creator-owned comics, that to think that it's just a couple of guys that are making YouTube videos that are the entire industry is, I don't know, man, it's frustrating.
I think that's the idea as an independent creator is to find, you know, people who are interested in reading comics, but for whatever reason haven't had a reason to read comics. There's a lot of people who stopped reading comics after they were younger. There's a lot of people who like the comic book movies, but they haven't really read them. Those are the types of fans I try to reach, just because, just like you said, the world of indie comics is so vast. And right now, it's growing rapidly. And, you know, I feel like it's going to eventually overtake the mainstream comic book industry. So I think that we're just at the beginning of something huge right here. I think we're just seeing the kind of the infancy of the world of comics changing. So I'm kind of excited about the future.
Yeah, I mean, and if you know, if your stuff is any indication, man, like it's super impressive. I can't tell you that, like,
Yeah.
I've been telling everybody, like, can you believe this guy's made these 3 books basically at once? And I mean, I'm sure he didn't necessarily make them all at once, but just being able to get them out and get them funded, and they look so good and diverse as far as, like, you know, types of stories and art style and everything. It's impressive, dude. it's really, really impressive.
Thank you. I mean, I really appreciate you you saying that. I appreciate you taking a look at him and responding that way. I actually did kind of make them all at once, ironically.
Nice.
So I mean, I guess for me, I'm kind of the type of person who enjoys all different types of content. Like I watch comedies, I watch documentaries, I watch horror. So as a writer, I wanted to create, different types of stories that would appeal to different types of people.
Sure.
So I first started off with what you have up here, Dragon Face, which is kind of like my pulp horror thriller.
Nice.
It kind of started off as kind of like a supervillain story, and it kind of morphed into like a psychological horror. And essentially, I guess when I wrote it, I was kind of dealing with some issues of my own. I was going through a little bit of I guess I don't want to say depressed, but I was in a dark space. So when I wrote this, I wanted to make it as extreme and as intense as possible. So out came Dragon Face, and it's kind of just, I guess the quick elevator pitch is that it's a in a world where there's an ancient sect of dark sorcerers who's control the world by imbuing magic that's based off of suffering. So the more that humanity suffers, the more powerful they are. And they have this hierarchy that goes through the family, where the son inherits the throne. And the son of this throne, or the next character, is a Cornelius, who is essentially the heir to be the most powerful sorcerer in the world. And he realizes that he wants to destroy the entire family. So he kind of goes on a revenge quest to rebel against his family and destroy them. The other character we have here is Camille, and Camille is a amateur sleuth, and she's like a corporate content manager. She basically keeps all the bad stuff off of the internet, and she stumbles upon the ancient sect of sorcerers, and she decides to team up with Cornelius to kind of take them down. And that's the long and short of it. I think that people who read it will like it because it's got a lot of twists and turns. It's got a lot of surprises, and it's my ode to dark fantasy, dark horror. If you like things like, I don't know, True Detective, or even horror movies like Hereditary and The Exorcist, like those are the things that I was inspired by when I wrote it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, just to, you said you wanted to make it you wanted to make it go hard because you were in a dark spot, and dude, job well done. I unfortunately didn't have time to read even the whole thing. I didn't realize it was like 150 pages or something. It's like a full story.
Yeah, it's 140 pages, so it's a full graphic novel. I just want to let everybody know it's on my website right now. We just launched a website about a week ago. So earthtoneking.com. I appreciate you guys having me up here because just getting the word out is always challenging when you're a new creator and things like that. This is, I'm literally just starting out.
Wow.
I have been working on these things for almost 4 years, but this is the first time that people can actually read what I've done. So that, it's definitely important to connect with people like you, just so I can get my books in front of people.
Yeah, I mean, and just so my audience knows, hopefully, that I don't tend to, I don't just promote stuff blindly or whatever. Like, I've had one other, well, I guess a few a while back, but like in the last couple of months, I've had you and another guy who's got a really awesome book out. And I want to platform creators, whether or not I'm super into the thing or not. But like with him, I didn't even know anything about it till we started looking at it on stream, and it was like in the moment, I'm like, holy shit, this is great. And with you, couldn't wait to promote this stuff, man, because if I don't believe in something, I'm not going to suggest to anybody that you should check it out. But everything that I can tell, you did it the right way, that's what, so to speak, where you weren't making videos about how other stuff is terrible. You're just like, you made some comics and said, here they are. And
well, if I'm being perfectly honest, I came close. I came really close. So this year has been really crazy. There's been like so many changes in my life. I had my firstborn son was born in February. I had some loss in my family, so many ups and downs. I ended up moving. It's so crazy. And in the midst of this, I had the bright idea of doing a Kickstarter. It was more of a timing thing. I was at home for a couple of months. So I was like, all right, now is the time I can sit in front of my computer every day and launch this Kickstarter, because I've always been afraid of Kickstarter. So when I launched it, everything was going pretty well. And at the same time, I kind of got into a Twitter beef with Eric July. And I was sitting there, and he sends me a link, and he's like, hey, we should debate on my show. So I'm kind of sitting here, and I'm just like, man, if I do this, I know that the back and forth he and I could have I could actually try to monetize that. And then I just sat back and I was like, you know what? That's like walking to a lion's den. I was already getting like harassed by a lot of his Twitter followers, and I realized that it wasn't smart for me to do that with my brand. So I chose to just do it, the normal way, and just, as you said, just promote it and just sell the brand, sell the product, allow people to experience it and see what I'm working on and what I have worked on. I have 3 different graphic novels, 3 different art teams, 3 different kind of concepts. And I just figured that if I cast a wide enough net, there would be something that would appeal to people. Yeah, when you said I did things the right way, I almost chose the way of the Sith, but I stayed the way of the Jedi.
I don't even know that would be, I don't see that as the same thing at all. I mean, I guess kind of.
Well, I had plans, so I had machinations of doing it, making it kind of sinister, where I would make my own videos and I was going to make my own content, because I knew that if I was going to play that game, I would have to play it like dirty. I would have to do the thumbnails and all the stuff, because that's the only way I was going to get the attention. And then I sat back and I was like, you know what? I had a discussion with my wife. I had a discussion with my best friend. They both said, don't do it. They're like, don't fall into it, because he wasn't the only one. There was another person who I was having some drama with, and this person was also a very high profile comic book creator. And, I kind of got hypnotized by the way that they were, operating on the internet. I was like, wow, well, why don't I do this?
Right.
If I can monetize it and I can make the money, it's like the little demon on your shoulder and the angel on the other one. And, this little red guy's on my shoulder, like, hey man, all you gotta do is make some videos and just make sure they're really controversial and use certain words and yada yada yada. And then I just realized I wasn't that guy. I'm not going to compromise myself, even if it's financially viable to do so.
From Earth-Tone Kingdom, the brainchild of screenwriter and hip-hop artist AJ Ampadu, comes 3 distinct stories spanning 3 genres, designed by 3 spectacular creative teams. 5 years in the making, Earth-Tone Kingdom is a new imprint that focuses on modern stories for the sophisticated genre reader. This is your opportunity to get in on one of the most exciting new voices in modern comics.
In the plastic, fresh copy, whiteboard and bag it. The only novels we read was graphic. Dressed like a nerd and I acted anxious. Got my first comic book and was fascinated. And just like that, your whole world changes. I saw my whole life right between the pages. DC and Marvel had the insane shit. Bruce Lee, Bruce Banner, Bruce Wayne, kid. Getting in the game, well, you need some practice. If you want to get your comic book stack the fattest, hit